So I was watching Mega Beatman's review on issue 68 for IDW Sonic, and he stated at the end there that they're going to be replacing the main book at least from the end of this month until at least the beginning of May of this year, with the Fang the Sniper, aka Knack the Weasel, miniseries. And he was kind of curious as to why they were doing this. Now, he did kind of hint that he kind of has an idea as to what the reasoning is, at least one of the reasonings are, that IDW would be doing this, although he didn't touch upon it because he didn't want to. But there have been others that have kind of talked about this, like Clownfish TV has talked about it, and others that talk about comics and related entertainment and media have talked about it. And I even mentioned it when I talked about my thoughts on IDW ending the main TMNT book that they're currently running in favor of focusing on spin-off books or miniseries or character-centric stories and stuff like that, like let's say the Last Ronin sequel and so on. And the reasoning could be just like with that, with IDW kind of pretty much shuttering the main book after its 150th issue. Could be due to financial reasons. And everybody has talked about the fact that IDW has dealt with some financial troubles in the past, and if not currently. So it would make sense that financially they would decide, hey, for our Sonic book, instead of just, having two stories going side by side like they used to, like they did with Scrapneck Island, went side by side with the main book as a miniseries. They had the one-shots focusing on Surge and all that. They had the miniseries focusing on Tangle and Whisper and the bad guys all running side by side with the main book. And now all of a sudden they're deciding, we're not going to do it this time around. Instead, we're going to shelve the main book for at least the next 4 months of, the first 4 months, that is, of 2024. And instead, we're going to focus on this miniseries, which again, like I said, comes out at the end of this month, beginning of next month, and concludes in May, essentially beginning mid-May, if you will, of this year. And I'm sure a lot of people, they hear this and they're like, well, if finances, is the reasoning, if finances are the reasoning, then why don't they just, sell off the licensed books? Why don't they just call up Skybound and say, hey, we're willing to sell the license. Well, first of all, get in contact with Sega and Nickelodeon and Paramount and say, hey, Skybound, would you like to have the license to TMNT and to Sonic? We got the okay from Nickelodeon and Paramount. We got the okay from Sega. Would you guys like to be the ones to carry on the book? Where it's leaving off. And keep the issues going numerically. As they are now. They could do that. Again, they'd have to talk to Paramount and Nickelodeon when it comes to TMNT, and to Sega when it comes to Sonic. But there is a good chance that if finances are the reason, a lot of people would basically say, hey, why don't they just get in contact with the people that own the rights to these characters that they're licensing out for these books, get the okay from them to work out a deal, maybe to sell those licensing rights out to or with their consent or with their help, sell those licensing rights out to somebody else like Skybound or Archie or whoever. Why not do that? And I think it's because of the fact that they've already lost, the rights financially to distribute, from a license perspective, comic books based on established IPs like Transformers and G.I. Joe and many others. I mean, the fact that they still have, as I checked something there, the fact that they still have, My Little Pony and and Gem, I think, and some other Hasbro properties to distribute as comic books, is a huge deal in its own right. But if this is the path they're going in here in 2024, if this is how they're starting out 2024 to where, in April of this year with the 150th issue, they're shuttering the most popular comic in favor of the spin-off comics, character central comics that might be miniseries and all that, as well as the fact that instead of doing the side-by-side thing like they used to do when it comes to the IDW Sonic comic, then instead they're shelving, the main comic in favor of something that could run side-by-side with it in the Knack the Weasel, Fang the Sniper miniseries, That's kind of very telling, in my opinion. It's kind of very telling. Now, some people may say like it's not a big deal. It's just something they want to do, so that way they don't start off the year in a financial debt or financial trouble like they already are. And yeah, maybe that's the reasoning. Maybe that's the reasoning, but still, it's like, again, if that's the case, then maybe it's time you cut ties, or maybe it's time you kind of work out a new schedule, like maybe every other month you bring out an issue of a comic. That way you could use that extra month where nothing gets released to basically figure out your finances and where you can go and maybe what you need to cut loose. So there are options to financially, secure yourself, secure your company and your employees, the freelancers and all that. Instead of going, down a route to where pretty much you could throw people off. You could really throw people off. I mean, let me remind you though. Let me remind you of this, guys. The last time a Sonic comic was being basically being put into a situation where finances, could be an issue. As I check something here again. Where finances could be an issue, was the Archie Sonic book. Now, it wasn't just finances that caused Archie to, end their partnership with Sega and vice versa. No, it was also the backstage politics and, what happened behind the scenes from a lawsuit perspective and everything, as well. But still, let's not forget that the last time we had issues of the main Sonic comic kind of become sporadical, the end result was, hey, Sonic went from Archie to IDW. And you don't need fans to think that IDW could be going down that same path with Sonic or any of the other licensed IPs that they have distributed, that they are distributing, I should say, as comics. Like, you don't want them to think that when it comes to My Little Pony and some of its titles. Or maybe, I think they got Ghostbusters still, right? Like Ghostbusters or TMNT, or whatever. You don't want them to think that they're going to be losing those licenses to somebody else, and basically we're back to square one again. You don't want that. You don't want to think that. But when you look at what's going on here, people are bound to think that way. They're bound to think, oh my gosh, they're halting the main book in favor of this, and then the next issue doesn't come out until almost summer. That's not a good sign. That's not right. People will think that. People will think that, and honestly, the truth is that, when you get down to it, is it's financial trouble. IDW is not going to come out and tell you, yeah, the reason we're halting the main Sonic book for at least the next several months up until the beginning of summer is because, we're facing some financial trouble, and we'd rather, save money by focusing on the miniseries that could be running side by side with it, as its own, as its temporary alternative in its place. Something, instead of saying something like that to people, they're just not going to say anything and just, basically bombard people with this kind of a surprise. Same with TMNT. But at least they did come out and say TMNT, the main book, is ending at 150, but they are still going to continue because they got re-upped. This, however, when it comes to Sonic, is not always a good sign, because even Sega may not be like, yeah, we appreciate you focusing a 4-issue miniseries on Fang, but you didn't have to, end or put the main comic on hiatus. So I think that's what it is. It's just financial reasons, in my opinion. But what are you guys' thoughts? Let me know down below.